Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to explore a mystery that time tried to erase. This is the story of a place forgotten by the world. Why nobody wants to talk about this American town. As you listen, try to catch the special vocabulary and focus on the flow of the sentences. This story is designed using A2 level English to help you upgrade your listening skills naturally. Pay close attention to the details because every town has secrets, but this one is different. Let's begin our journey into the quiet streets of the past. The afternoon sun was high in the sky when we started our journey. A long, empty road stretched out before us, surrounded by tall trees and thick grass. According to the old maps, a small town named Riverview was located at the end of this road. However, if you look at a modern map today, you will find nothing but a blank space. Why did a whole community disappear from the records? We wanted to find out the truth. As we drove deeper into the countryside, the air became cooler and the birds stopped singing. It is important to notice how the environment changes when you travel to isolated places. The GPS on my phone stopped working about 10 miles ago. When you practice listening, try to imagine the quietness of a road with no digital signals. The only sound was the wind hitting the front window of our car. Old, broken wooden fences ran along the side of the road, showing that people used to live here a long time ago. These fences were built by farmers to protect their animals 50 years ago. Now they are just gray wood falling into the dirt. We knew we were getting closer because we saw an old metal sign. It was covered in red rust and bent in the middle. The letters were difficult to read, but they spelled the word Riverview. Listen carefully to how the name sounds, Riverview. A town named after a beautiful view, but now there was no river to see. The river dried up many years ago, leaving only a deep, dusty path in the ground. We turned a sharp corner, and suddenly the trees cleared away. In front of us stood the first houses of the town. They looked like old ghosts sitting in the middle of the green field. Think about how a town looks when no one has walked its streets for decades. The windows were broken, and the doors were wide open, moving slowly in the wind. Remember, these houses were once full of life, laughter, and families. What made everyone pack their bags and leave so quickly? We parked the car near a large tree and stepped out into the quiet air. Walking onto the main street felt like stepping into a time machine. The street was wide, but grass was growing through the cracks in the dark asphalt. Nature always takes back the land when humans leave it alone for too long. On both sides of the street, there were old shops with faded signs. We saw a bakery, a small grocery store, and a post office. Inside the bakery, there were still white plates sitting on the wooden tables. Imagine walking into a room where everything stopped in a single second. A thick layer of gray dust covered every surface like blankets. Do not touch anything because these old buildings can be dangerous and unstable. I looked through the dirty glass window of the grocery store. Old tin cans were still lined up on the shelves, their labels fading from the sunlight. Why didn't the shopkeeper take the food with them? It seemed like the people left in a terrible hurry, leaving their daily things behind. We continued walking down the center of the silent street. The wind made a strange whistling sound as it blew through the empty buildings. It felt like the town was watching us, whispering its old secrets into the cold air. Notice the use of descriptive words to create a lonely atmosphere in your mind. We found a small newspaper office near the end of the block. The front door was completely gone, and old papers were scattered all over the floor. I picked up a piece of a newspaper from the year 1975. The front page talked about an ordinary town meeting with no warning of any trouble. This means the problem happened suddenly, without giving the citizens time to prepare. The silence of the main street was heavy and thick. Remember, listening to stories about empty places helps us understand the importance of human community. Suddenly, we heard a loud metallic sound from the end of the road. The loud sound made us jump, but it was just an old metal door swinging in the wind. The door belonged to the town's elementary school, a large brick building. The red bricks were covered in green ivy, and the playground was full of tall weeds. Picture a playground with a rusty swing set that nobody uses anymore. The swings moved slowly back and forth, making a sharp, crying sound. The metal parts were dry and needed oil, which caused the squeaking noise. We walked inside the school building through the open side door. The long hallway was dark, and our shoes made loud echoes on the concrete floor. Always watch your step when you are exploring old, unlit buildings. Informative. We opened the door to a first-grade classroom. Small wooden desks were arranged in neat rows facing a large black chalkboard. Mysterious. On the chalkboard, someone had written a sentence that was never finished. Inquisitive. What were the children doing when they had to leave? Explanation. The lesson stopped in the middle of a word, showing how fast the evacuation was. Descriptive. A colorful alphabet poster hung loosely on the wall, turning yellow from the damp air. Informative. In the corner of the room, we found a teacher's desk with an open notebook. Mysterious. The pages were stuck together, but we could see dates from October 1975. Instruction. Listen to the date carefully. October 1975. Informative. That was the exact month and year when the town became silent forever. Descriptive. Outside the classroom window, the sky was turning dark with heavy gray clouds. Reminder. A storm was coming, and we needed to find more answers before the rain started. Mysterious. We found a small diary under a pile of books on the floor. Explanation. This diary belonged to a young student who lived in Riverview. Informative. We opened the first page to read what happened during those final days. The handwriting in the diary was small and round, typical for a young child. The first pages talked about normal things, like playing games and going to the river. A diary at A2 level uses simple sentences to describe everyday life events. Pay attention to the simple past tense words used in this section. The child wrote about their dog, their friends, and their favorite school subjects. However, the entries changed completely in the middle of October. The writing became messy, and the sentences were very short and nervous. The child wrote about a strange smell coming from the basement of the houses. What was causing this strange smell across the whole town? The diary described it as a thick, sweet smell that made people feel very dizzy. Soon after, the child wrote that many people were getting sick and coughing. The local doctor's office was full of worried parents and crying children. This gives us a big clue about why the town was abandoned so quickly. The government sent large trucks with men wearing white protective suits. The child wrote, "The men told us we must leave our toys and go to the bus now." Imagine the fear of a small child leaving their favorite things behind forever. The last page of the diary had only one sentence written on it. It said, "We are never coming back to Riverview." After that sentence, the pages were completely blank and white. The diary ended because the family left the town that very night. Now we understood that a sudden environmental danger forced everyone to run away. The rain started to hit the school roof with a loud, rhythmic sound. Remember, we had to move fast to find out what happened to the people after they left Riverview. We left the school and walked through the heavy rain toward the town church. The church had a tall white tower that pointed toward the dark, stormy sky. Church towers were built high so people could see them from far away in the countryside. Listen to the sound of the rain in the story to feel the atmosphere. The wooden front doors were unlocked and we stepped into the large hall. Rows of long wooden benches faced a beautiful altar at the front. Everything was perfectly clean, as if the dust could not enter this holy place. Why did this building look so different from the broken houses outside? The tight structure of the church protected the inside from the wind and the rain. We found a large record book sitting on a table near the entrance. It contained the names of all the families who lived in Riverview for 100 years. Next to the last names, someone had written the word relocated. Relocated means moved to a new and different place by force or choice. The government moved all the citizens to a new city 20 miles away. They did this to protect the people from the dangerous gas under the ground. A natural gas leak had started under the town, making the air toxic to breathe. The town was built on top of an old rock formation that cracked open. The toxic gas rose up through the basements of the homes and shops. That was the sweet smell the young child wrote about in the diary. It was too dangerous for humans to stay even one more day. The church was the place where the families gathered to wait for the evacuation buses. I could almost see the worried faces of the families sitting on the benches in the dark. Think about the sadness of leaving your hometown and never looking back. The rain began to stop, and a small streak of sunlight broke through the clouds. We walked out of the church and looked at Riverview one last time. The mystery was finally solved. The town was not haunted, just deeply hurt by nature. Use this final part to review the key details you learned in the story. A natural gas disaster forced a beautiful community to disappear in 1975. Nobody wants to talk about it because it reminds them of a sad and scary time. The houses will slowly fall down and the trees will grow over the main street. Soon there will be no sign that a town ever existed in this green valley. Nature is very powerful and can erase human history in just a few decades. We walked back to our car, feeling a deep respect for the people who used to live here. When you practice your English listening today, think about how stories connect us to history. We started the engine and drove away down the long, empty country road. In our mirror, the white church tower became smaller and smaller until it vanished. Riverview is gone, but its story remains in our minds. Learning English through stories helps you remember words by connecting them to feelings. Always share what you learn with others to keep your language skills sharp and active. Thank you for listening to this mystery with me today. Don't forget to practice these words and sentences every day. See you in our next English learning adventure. Goodbye.